Memories. That is the shortest way I can describe what Day of the Dead is all about. Memories, respect, and love. Day of the Dead is a holiday in which people come together from all walks of life to pay respect to those who are no longer with us and remain to be in the afterlife in peace and in good spirits. Hello, my name is John, and I'm the host of the Arcadia One podcast. This is part two of our, well, I guess you could say Halloween Day of the Dead special. Today, we will be primarily focusing on the discussion of Day of the Dead and what it means to me, how it's represented in media, should everybody celebrate it, how to celebrate it, and a little more to tug a few heartstrings, I think. I think also that it's definitely going to be a little bit more shorter than the Halloween episode, so not to worry. I don't think I want to buzz anybody's ears with my oddly annoying voice. Still, I would probably suggest you sit back and relax. So, without further ado, let's get into it. What does Day of the Dead mean to me? Well, first of all, if you're not too sure of what Day of the Dead is all about, I guess I can go a brief little history lesson about what exactly Day of the Dead is. Day of the Dead is a holiday that is mostly celebrated in Mexico, but has been, over the past couple of years, celebrated and in the same respect to which Mexico has done it, in which the holiday primarily focuses on paying respects to the dead, honoring the dead, and giving them offerings, building altars in their name, and remembering the loved ones that we've lost. It's probably the most beautiful holiday I can think of at the top of my head, as we look back on those who are no longer with us, and we have fun with those that are still around. We eat, we drink, we have a few little games here and there, but Day of the Dead is mostly for those who have lost family members, go to their graves, pay respects, and spend time in the presence of those that may or may not be around. And I say that in the spiritual sense. Majority of what Day of the Dead represents is just purely understanding the afterlife, not to be afraid of it, and showing love to those who are gone. Day of the Dead has been around for many years. And it goes all the way back to, well, no, now that I think about it, it's probably been going on for about a good couple of centuries. Still, it's been largely part of the world history, mostly Mexico's history, but up until at least recently, within the start of the 19th century, has had its little tinges and marks on reaching other parts of the world. Now that we've eventually come through to a modern society, it is almost part of every single Latin American culture and community in the States and in other parts of the world that celebrate it in slightly different ways. You follow accordingly by still building an altar, but people do it their own way that honestly I can't think of at the top of my head. But the point stays the same. Day of the Dead is just respecting the death, the life, and the memories of those who are gone. So, in terms of me, personally, what does Day of the Dead mean to me? Well, I think I kind of expressed that a little bit with the explanation of what the holiday is about. Yeah, but I never really got to understand what the holiday was up until hmm, maybe until I was in high school, probably 15, 16 years old. I was aware of its existence, and in fact, I think in middle school we did have a project. We had to build an altar for a loved one, and it was so much fun. Now that I remember it, yeah, that was in middle school. God, it's been so long. But having to work on that little project, it was something that me and my mom had worked together, although she did a lot of the work. And I approached the idea with sharing it with her simply because of the fact that I wanted to pay my respects. Now, I guess you could say I'm going to touch a little bit on my personal family history, but my aunt and my uncle, they died a long time ago. And the way they died, it's a little sad to admit, but they died due to overdose, both of them. But the causes of their death are still a little bit uneasy just to even think about. Nonetheless, they were still around partially when I was just a baby. And my mom cherished her brother and her sister very, very closely. She cherished them so much that it still hurts to see how she reacts at times when she thinks about their birthdays and the days that they died. Still, I took it to heart and realized that they were important members of my family. So I approached her when we had received the class project to build an altar. And oddly enough, it was in a shoebox. Ah, I wasn't too sure about that, but I thought it was fun. And, well, we made it. We built it. I brought it over to my class, and I did pretty well. I explained who the altar was for, shared a little bit of history, talked about what they meant to me, and yeah, it was nice. It was fun. It was something different. And I don't think it's something that they teach in school, honestly. Oh, but I think they should. Most of the time, I remember they just brought us activity books to color in the skulls and whatnot, and it was just kind of, oh, like that's what we're gonna do. So, okay, yeah. But as the years passed and I started to question and look into more of my family history, I realized that yeah, there were a good number of people that in my family that I've lost. Well, granted, I don't have an enormous family, but to those that were here and now gone, they did hold a small and special place in my heart, and they remain to do so to this day. So, as what Day of the Dead means to me, well, it's a holiday that I think is something that should be discussed and more put out there so that everybody can look back and have a moment to reflect and think about all the good times that they had with that said family member. It's a wonderful, beautiful holiday that is just overlooked by everything else. Kind of like Thanksgiving, but I don't want to get into that. I see other meanings to Thanksgiving rather than what people look at it as if you're really more of a history buff, I guess. And I won't get into that now. But the point is that just like Thanksgiving, I hold Day of the Dead at a pretty cherishable amount in my regard. So, yes, it is an amazing holiday. It is something that people should talk about and push to have the next generations to know more so about in all manners, in all different ways, not just calling books or little projects that even I had, but an actual lesson of what it means, how it got started, and what really it is all about. So let's hope that things change up a little bit and that brings more to light on what Day of the Dead is. So, now that we've gotten my small thoughts about Day of the Dead out of the way, the holiday itself is, well, not necessarily new to the public eye, but it is something that people think about and say, oh, hey, that's cool. But it's not something that I think everybody knows and understands. Yes, I'm touching on that little number again, but I'm touching on it on a different angle. You see, given in this current year of 2020, there have been only two films, and I think in pretty much any sort of media that has touched on the themes of Day of the Dead. I don't think books count in this case because there have been a few, but it's not something that most people will look into and say, hey, yeah, there's a book about that. No. But Day of the Dead itself, as a theme for a film, wasn't really too much of a big topic or even a thought up until, well, first of all, The Book of Life, and then Coco with Disney. Now, both films do a good share of difference in having to explain what Day of the Dead means and what it's all about. But seeing as how it's just those two films that talk about Day of the Dead, it's a bit of a shame that the holiday alone is not really just out there. It's not touched on, it's not played with, it's not even something that people even think about. Oh, yeah, let's make a show or let's make a movie about that for everybody else to understand and respect. Granted, Coco did a good job, and so did the Book of Life, but they did it in a way that I guess people just can enjoy it as a family. And while there's nothing wrong with that, I think there's a more, I, I don't know, it feels like it deserves more of a mature and serious approach in, I guess, through a drama or maybe just something along the lines of, I don't know, a TV show. Something. I think drama does suit the themes of making it into a movie of some sorts. Still, that is pretty sad to even think about that. Day of the Dead is not something that people even think about making any movie or show or even a game about now that I think about it. And if I'm wrong, please enlighten me and tell me. But yeah, it's a bit of a darn shame that we only have those two films to really look back and say, hey, yeah, I know what Day of the Dead is about. But that's because, finally someone said, hey, this little holiday's cool. Let's just make a movie and, capitalize on that. No. Day of the Dead deserves a lot more respect than that. And I think doing a movie that touches on both the beautiful aspects of it, but also the more serious and personal, I guess, emotions that anyone would feel during that holiday would be a nice touch and a nice change of pace. So let's hope somebody does come up with that in the next couple of years, because I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. Either way, Day of the Dead is definitely not something that people really think twice about when they want to make a movie. All right. Well, we've touched on the holiday just a little bit here and there. Kidding. That's the whole point of the episode. But there is a question that does ponder in my mind, especially when I had discussed a little earlier as to having it be taught as a traditional holiday that everyone should celebrate. But that is a question in itself. Should everyone celebrate it? Why should they celebrate it? And is it really necessary? And I guess as part of society to care and know and enjoy it in any shape that they can. Me personally, I believe yes. People should celebrate. Everybody should celebrate it. If it is officially just known as Day of the Dead, to keeping the tradition of the actual holiday, yes, that is something that I think everybody should celebrate. Why wouldn't you want to look back and appreciate the lives of somebody that touched you personally in your family or even through friends? Or, I guess, in the rare case, somebody that you admired, like a celebrity. But again, that could go for other people that maybe weren't even related to you at all. So, yeah, it is something that we should all celebrate. It's a time for us to look back and think about what makes those lifetimes, those people's entire lives, just what makes it so special. What does it mean for us who were touched by them or who were affected by them in some shape or form? Although, I guess on a negative aspect, people could take that a little bit too harshly and say, oh, they don't deserve to be respected and this and that, depending on who you're talking about with family or friends or anybody else, really. But as a holiday, just the idea of respecting your loved ones and their lives is wonderful. It is great. And it is something that I think everybody really should not only take the time to understand and respect, but as I was suggesting, to celebrate. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think the best part about the holiday is that it brings us together in a simple way. We have funerals and we mourn the death of that which we've lost. It's so heartbreaking and at the same time so devastating for us in that moment that we don't know exactly how to process our emotions once we're at the funeral. But Day of the Dead gives us the time to reflect those emotions that we struggled so hard to even think about or even release from our own minds. And let's just take a moment to think back of what made those people special. Give us a clear sense of thinking and coming into our own conclusions about what it is we should feel now that this person is gone. So, yeah, something like that should be really be part of everyday traditional history, every single part of society. I don't know if you can technically leave it as Day of the Dead for people to really take and say, oh, yeah, sure, that's something I'll definitely look forward to and think about because of this and that. Because some people can be touchy about just the idea of death and just, you know, they'll find some excuse to say that it's not a really good holiday, as some people do. But overall, yeah, the holiday itself is special and it needs to be a bigger focus. It needs to be something we should all take the time and be a part of. Because nothing brings us more closer and together than other people. All right, well, now that we've touched on the holiday and different angles, I think it's safe to say that for people now who can understand it with my rather strange angles and discussions, sorry if it sounded like I was repeating the same thing over and over again, but it is important to get those thoughts and questions across before I touch on the holiday in itself. So, with that in mind, I think it's a good way to transition towards how do you celebrate Day of the Dead? Or how should you, really? Well, there is a right way. There's no right or wrong way, actually, what am I saying? But there is a way of celebrating it by building an altar of someone that you love that you lost. Or making little sweets and treats. There's pan de muerto, which is sort of like a pan dulce, a sweet bread variation that you mostly leave as an offering for the loved one at the altar. And there are sugar skulls. Although I'm not sure how to make those exactly, but I imagine they require sugar in some sense. Still, watching and looking up videos on how to make something like that is pretty simple for everybody to do. The holiday itself and having to celebrate it is just no different, I think, than having to come together. It's a sort of gathering. You know, you have family members come from afar or whatnot, and I guess in this case it just is a little different, you know, social distancing. But a good way to celebrate it this time during this year is simple. Create your own altar. Make it for somebody you love who is gone. Create sweets of any kind, but try to, I guess, follow suit with what Day of the Dead is about. And if you're trying to really come together and talk about good times with those who are no longer with us, well, I don't think it's a bad thing to look over old pictures in the photo album, talk to family members of stories about those who are gone, and if you got videos, watch them. Home movies, pictures, and maybe creating some art to pay respect to those people who are gone is a great way to pay homage. It's a wonderful thing, and I think there's no right or wrong way of doing it now that I've said all those things out loud. It's just a matter of having to respect the people that have died. That's the whole point. And if you can find a way to express yourself artistically or in any sort of form, then I think that's a good way to go. It's a good way to say thank you, to say I love you, and to say I hope you're always there watching me. And one day I'll see you again, and it'll be a wonderful, wonderful experience. So, if you got all those things in mind, I think celebrating it shouldn't be too difficult. but try to stay safe. It is hard, and I think we all have those moments where it's just tender and emotional, but that is also an important factor. And while we do want to be there and embrace one another as family and friends, there is a part of it, there is part of the holiday that I think we should put a little more focus on when it comes to remembering loved ones, especially with the emotions that come with thinking about them. And that is something I think we need to touch a little bit more on. So, with having to celebrate Day of the Dead, I think it's safe to say that when you are thinking about a loved one that is gone, you will feel a lot of emotions. You'll feel happy, you'll feel sad, you'll feel maybe angry, or maybe you'll feel completely just down in the dumps. It's hard, I guess, to put into words, but when I personally think about those who are no longer with us, family that I've lost, some of the mentors that I've had that are gone, and one or two friends that are gone from my life, it is difficult to put it into words, really. But I'm not afraid to think about those people. I'm not afraid to want to cry or to just to get a little emotional and think, oh, it hurts. It hurts to feel. It hurts to think about. It hurts just to. It hurts to miss them. It just hurts. But thinking about those who are gone is never a bad thing. In fact, I think it's something that we all need to confront at some point or another. We're not immortal, and our time will come when we die. Some sooner for others. And that is a terrifying thing to think about. Death itself, while strangely fascinating for some, myself included, it is something that we all dread and fear. But we shouldn't. As some of the themes of Day of the Dead go, it goes to show us that a holiday gives a little bit of a light on the thoughts of what comes to, or what happens to us when we die. We build these altars, we give offerings, and on the rare occasions we see that or those who we lost. It's not a bad thing. And the idea of having to fear death in general is not something that we should fear. Day of the Dead shows us that there is something after death. What that is exactly, well, I can't answer that, and I don't think anybody really can. It's something that we all have our own opinion on. But at least having the ability to celebrate a holiday when we remember those who we've lost and being visited by them in some little form is a beautiful thing to look at as a reflection of what we all fear but will eventually meet an end. So, with that in mind, it's important to recognize that Day of the Dead is not a bad thing, but to have the fear of it, to have these emotions, to think so much about everything, the loss, the pain, and the uncertainty about what's to come for yourself now that this person is gone, it is a good time to reflect. It's something that we all need to do, but Day of the Dead gives us a more proper way of doing it. For some, it's not easy, and myself included. I think it's hard to think about life without people that I used to see often. And there are some people that I've lost that I never really got to meet or even really got to have a relationship with, but I knew that their presence meant something to someone. And it's amazing to think about how much impact it has, a single life. And it's a nice way of counteracting the thoughts of suicide, in my opinion. You have these memorable people. Everybody, in their own shape or form, is memorable with what they do, with what they say, with how they are. The presence alone is memorable somehow. And the main idea of what Day of the Dead is about is remembering people that are gone. Remembering, laughing, crying, and saying thank you. And it should be a lesson that we should take to heart. Being alive. We are human. We have emotions. But sometimes those emotions are hard to handle. They're hard to deal with, and that's okay. We don't have the answers that we're looking for at the moments that we probably might need them. And maybe they don't even come from ourselves. They probably come from people that we meet, people that we're close with, people that we are related to, and people that were once with us. But who's to say that the dead can't help but give us a shining light, a, a path, a guide of some sort? Who's to say that they are not capable of showing us the answers that we might need through memories that we have had with those people that are gone? It's a beautiful thing to think about. And I say that, I guess, honestly, in more repetition because it is beautiful. There's so many things that come in our lives, the struggles and difficult parts of living itself that make life just hard to handle at times. We want to give up, we want to just be gone. And for some people, that option is the cause of their death. Suicide is a terrible, terrible thing to even slowly go through the process and eventually coming to that result, making that decision. Personally speaking, yes, I have had those thoughts, and I understand that life is just too hard sometimes. Or maybe something happened and it's just so difficult to come to terms with the trauma or the events that occurred that led up to these horrible emotions. But when we think about the beautiful memories that we may have given somebody else, the moments that we shared, whether they were good or bad, the presence of our lives, of ourselves, in other people's worlds, that is something more powerful than dreading for an end that comes so quickly and so painfully. Not just for ourselves, but for those around us. And I think that's something that we should all take a moment to recognize and understand that even though death is an end to some extent, it isn't the end entirely. We live on in people's memories. We live on in the things that we create. We live on in what we've done. Somehow, some way, a little thing that we decided to do affected someone else or something else. Kind of like the butterfly effect, I would say. But I don't think doing your everyday job had some sort of effect on life as a whole. But when it comes to interacting with friends and family, yes, I think maybe everybody's personal history would have been very different if we had either decided to end our lives or not existed at all. And that's scary to think about. We all have such short lifespans in this world, and yet what we do with it can be good or bad. We're not perfect, and we never will be, but the choices we make, the things that we do, the people that we keep company, the family that we cherish, the times that are hard and fun, all that combined is a message in itself. So to have a holiday such as Day of the Dead, to look back and remember the things that somebody did, the things that somebody said, the things that somebody experienced, either alone or with you beside them, that in itself is the most motivational thing to ever recognize. And I think if we take a time out of the year to look at it, cherish that, and ultimately just say, I miss you, I love you, thank you for being in my life. I think that is the true meaning of what Day of the Dead is all about and what it means to us in every layer of our emotions, in our minds, and in our souls. Ah, well, I think I got a little too deep there for a second. Well, it felt like it. I don't know. I can't tell what I'm feeling sometimes. But Day of the Dead, as a whole, is a day to remember those that we've lost. And quite frankly, 2020 has been a year that has been hard on a lot of people. I don't I haven't lost anybody personally through this whole situation and through this whole year, but there have been memorable people that are well known and people of all manners of life that have unfortunately passed away. We are in an ever changing moment of our world history, and so many things have happened. So many political, so many medical, and just so many societal changes that we've come across at this time, the moment that I'm speaking, on the 30th of October. That is pretty. It's just amazing to look back and just think, wow, so much has happened, and so many people are gone. It's it's hard, and it's pretty devastating to think about. I say what I'm saying, but I haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg, honestly, about everything that has happened. But I don't want to dread you and remind you of all the horrible things that have happened this year. I know some of them are very important, don't get me wrong, but still, it's just a lot for anybody. But I want to take this time right now before we come to an end to this special to have a moment of silence for everybody that we've lost, be it big or small, be it close or far. We have had a great amount of loss this year, more so than I think any other year for some time now. So let's look back, take a breather, just a whole minute of silence to respect those that are gone. Well, thank you if you took a moment to remain silent. Well, now that we've come to that end, I think it's safe to say that I can close things off with just a few final comments. It is, without a doubt, an amazing thing understanding and respecting Day of the Dead. I don't think my little special here has done it justice, but I think my intentions for what I'm doing are in the right place. I I haven't had too much of a good year, and things have been difficult for all of us. But I wanted to have a little bit of fun and just share and talk about things that I feel are important and that might be overlooked given the whole state of the world. And yeah, I mean, some of us are stuck at home, like myself, and it's just hard to think of doing anything else. But hey, you know, it's just a matter of having to keep a line of emotional connection with people who I probably have not seen for a long time now, or people I just don't know. This podcast alone serves that purpose. And moving forward from this special onwards, that is going to be my main goal from now on in every episode that I make. I want to have fun with this podcast, depending on how long it lasts. I hope it lasts for a good couple of years, but you know, I had a huge crisis having to figure out what it is that I was going to touch on, what I was going to focus on, and I think I've finally found my footing. And it's simply this: with every episode, or almost every episode, I would like to talk about something that maybe I don't know about, or maybe that I know a little bit about, but just to have fun with it. Fun is the whole point of this entire thing that I've been doing. And I wasn't having fun for a few months, which is why I've been so in and out with this podcast. It's been crazy. But I guess I've been missing that. I've been missing what it means to have fun doing something like this. And for some time, there might be times actually where I'll be alone in my room talking with nothing but the walls and maybe my neighbors hearing me talk at a certain volume. Sorry if that's the case. But I mean, that's just part of it. It's not going to be like this forever. It's not going to, feel this way, I think. I think I'm going to get the hang of this and do better, and it's just a matter of time. But yeah, moving forward, I want this to be something people can look back on and say, hey, I remember that. That was a cool episode. Or, yeah, that was pretty cool. Or, oh, that was pretty interesting. Or, that was funny. I don't know. It could be anything. But I want it to be a good feeling when people think about. And it's just going to be me talking or doing whatever. I don't think I'll really move past doing podcasts and talking. But hey, you never know what could come my way and what life might throw at me. Maybe I'll end up doing other stuff. I've always wanted to do live streams, but my internet's a bit wonky. So, who knows? But I have a few ideas of what I could do to exit out of this little comfort zone that is just talking with my voice. I'm not the best at editing, so hey, I do my best. But again, I'm rambling. Sorry. The point is, I appreciate all of you who have enjoyed my little special. It's not much, but I think it's something that can give everybody just a little food for thought. And hey, you know, it's all about just hearing some weirdo talk on a cheap microphone connected to either his computer or his phone. I'll leave that for you to decide. But hey, it's the whole point. It's just simple and fun, and that's good enough for me. Yeah. Alrighty. I think I've rambled like an old man long enough. It's been a pleasure doing this little special for you, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.